The Business is sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
I'm Roma Bomick, and just in case you're wondering, we thought we'd start the show a little differently. That piece you just heard was The Arrival of the Queen of Sheba by Handel, written 300 years ago, and of course still going strong. We thought it was a great link to the businesses we're about to introduce and the theme for this evening. So what is the theme for this evening? Well, tonight we're looking at how you sustain business success. It's one thing starting your business, but what makes companies successful generation after generation? To answer the question and more, we're joined by the owners and directors of two very successful businesses. Alistair Tusting, director of Tusting, a fifth-generation business who have been tanning, grading and trading the world's finest leathers for over 130 years, and Peter Harper, founder and director of Harper's Fine Foods and Wines, a second-generation award-winning business, and, as the title says, purveyors of quality food and wines. We'll be finding out just what makes them so successful, how they've managed to ride the storm of previous recessions, and see if they can give us some clues as to the secret of longevity in business. We've also got additional contributions from David Higgins, Managing Director of HR Higgins Coffee Man Limited, and Yvonne Rowson from Radlett Grooming Centre. So, as ever, a packed show. But I'm joined by... but before we crack on, I'm joined by some of the fabulous business show team, Vicky Scott and Claire McAnulty. Hi, guys. How's your week?
Brilliant, absolutely excellent. And I think the intro was perfect as an intro to you, Roma. The entrance of the Queen of Sheba, absolutely brilliant.
I try my best. So what's grabbed you in the news, Vicky, this week?
Well, actually, the thing that caught my eye was a cartoon by the inimitable Tom Fishburne. I'm sure you've seen some of his stuff. He's got he always makes me laugh. He has this sort of a fantastic way of sort of looking at the boardroom and looking at business from a sort of 180-degree angle. And I just saw this cartoon and it made me giggle so much, and I thought it was very much in keeping with the theme of the show. So I know it's a bit difficult to do cartoons on radio, but just imagine a picture of a board meeting. You've got the sort of usual people, you've got the chairman at the end, and what he's doing is sort of pontificating to his staff, and he's saying, instead of risking anything new, let's play itself by continuing our slow decline into obsolescence. And it just made me chuckle, and it made me sort of think, we're hearing a lot, and we're going to be hearing a lot from the guests tonight about how they've managed to survive all these years, what it is that they do. And it also reminded me of a time many, many years ago when I was working with what was possibly one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, which of course for purposes of the show will remain nameless. Mm-hmm. But I was working with the marketing director and trying to encourage them to do some different things. And I remember him distinctly saying to me that he expected his team to do more of the same. So when he employed them, they did more of the same for a couple of years, and then if they did that, they would smoothly progress through the company. He said, we do employ a few mavericks who sometimes take bold steps outside the norm, and if those bold steps have, some success, then they are fast-tracked in the business. But, he said, the majority of new ideas don't really work, so the people that take them are just let go. And it staggered me at the time. It did make me sort of think, that maybe at a push might work in mega corporations, but with most of the businesses in the world today, most of the SMEs, innovation is absolutely crucial, and I know it's something we're going to hear a lot about tonight. And I can't remember exactly whether it's Hunter S. Thompson, but I think it was, that said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I suspect if we talked about it, many of our clients have come across that old adage and talked to clients about it before. So. Yeah, and we know from so many of our previous discussions, don't we, Vicky, that innovation isn't just about technology. It's very much about new thinking, and so to close the door on new thinking and new ideas is just mad. It's extraordinary. You just can't imagine that anybody would think like that.
No.
It doesn't have to be dramatic, and it doesn't have to be immediate. It can be long-term innovation. But, if you're not watching what's going on in the world and what your customers are doing and how they're changing, then you just miss it. You're just going to be missing a trick. There's
absolutely.
No two ways about it at all. So that was interesting, and it's sort of nothing new, as there never is, but just reminded me.
It grabbed your attention.
Yeah.
Claire, what about you? What's grabbed you this week?
Well, sort of following on from the innovative ideas, I came across this idea for shopping for clothes. Now, we've all gone in shopping for clothes. I quite like trying on different clothes, but you do get fed up with it sometimes, let's be honest. So this idea in Japan last month, it's a company called Urban Research, and they've launched an experiment that uses enhanced virtual changing room technology. So we've all heard about pop-up stores, but they've launched what's been called a micro pop-up store, which measures just 7 square metres. The store is called Wearable Clothing and carries no stock. Instead, a customer stands in front of a 60-inch screen and selects clothing items they want to try on. The technology then allows them to see themselves dressed in those clothes within seconds. You don't actually need to try it on, it just does it all for you. And customers can also use an integrated iPad to take pictures of themselves in their new clothes and share them with their friends and social networks. The advantage to retailers are that they're able to sell products without the burden of managing stock. In other words, they can probably get products via their e-commerce site. To purchase an item, customers just have to scan a QR code and click buy. That's how simple it is. So I don't know what you two think of that as an idea.
I don't know if I'd like to be on a big screen. However, I mean, I do get fed up with just trying things on. In fact, what I tend to do is I'm one of those people that grabs things, buys them, takes them home, tries them on, takes them back.
Do you know what? It reminded me of, I don't know whether anybody is old enough to remember Bunty magazine. But on the back of Bunty, there used to be like a little Bunty and lots of different clothes, and you used to cut the clothes out and stick them on the Bunty and put outfits together for her. And it's like the modern day version of that. And I think it's sort of like it's a great concept. I mean, you can do that in hairdressers, and you do it in Specsavers when you're trying on, you're going for glasses, you can take a shot of yourself and all of that. But the problem with clothes is always that it's where they hang and how they hang on the bits that you don't want really to be exposed. That is the problem with it. So it will reduce the amount of shopping around you have to do. Hone it down a little bit.
But I don't think what it was suggesting was quite good for things like let's say you had a skirt and you wanted to try on, I don't know, half a dozen tops with the skirt. Then it's quite good for something like that. But as you say, I mean, really, you want to turn to the side. You want to see what you look like from the back. You want to see how it fits in your shoulders. That type of thing. But they're talking about maybe putting these booths in maybe like railway stations and letting people try them on.
Apparently you can turn yourself side to side, because I went online and had a little look. When I saw your little story, I thought, this looks interesting, and you can do that. But it's quite a public place that you're doing it in. It's not like you're in a little private cubicle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, I mean, obviously you don't have to undress, but you're still standing there in front of a 60-inch screen with your image projected.
I tell you who I think will love it is men who don't like shopping and just want to do something quickly, try something on roughly, that'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure they bothered though. If they're not into clothes, then will they be bothered to try it on before? And they just sort of, I want a blue shirt.
Their wives and girlfriends will shove them in front of it and say, just try it on.
Anyway, it's great to see new technology sort of moving things on. I did, in that sort of virtual world, I think it's an absolute brilliant concept that Sainsbury's have come up with in the Far East, where there's like a shopping wall at a train station. You click what you want to buy in the morning and you collect on the way home. There's no stock or anything like that. It's just all done, and that's just a genius sort of concept. I'm hoping that's going to come to Harpenden Station quite soon, but I can't see it myself, given they can't even link up with the tube at the moment with the ticket purchasing.
Well, as ever, it looks as though we've got tons to discuss, but I think we ought to take a short break, and we'll be back shortly.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
Hi, this is Danny Smith. Join me weekdays from 4 till 7 p.m. for West Harts Drive Time, with features including Chris's Film Club, Pound Saver, Community Notice Board, Calendar Artist, Hot Topics and many more besides. We also feature correspondence covering topics such as lifestyle, consumer advice, cooking, interior design and travel. We have regular interviews, local news and sports, celebrity birthdays, travel and traffic updates and competitions as well. That's all on West Herts Drive Time with me, Danny Smith, on 92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
The Solid Gold Music Show on Radio Verulam is with you on Saturday mornings between 9am and 1pm. Join Derek Staines and Stephen Hall as they flash you back, value discs, have a brief biog and interview the stars. We also allow SJH to ramble down nostalgia lane. It's all on the Premier Oldies show here on 92.6 FM. The Solid Gold Music Show, sponsored by Dock Guard of Luton.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam, with a voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. So tonight, as we discussed earlier, we're looking at what it takes to not just grow your business, but how to stay successful potentially through the generations. And we're joined by two studio guests who I'm going to ask Vicky to introduce. Vicky.
So I've got with me tonight Alistair Tusting and Peter Harper. Alistair Tusting runs Tustings. It's a family-based business, as I think Roma mentioned earlier. It's in the heart of the English countryside, and its roots are deep in the English leather and shoe trade. Alistair, we understand, is fifth generation of the family. He's now at the helm, and they've been tanning, grading and looking after and creating wonderful, wonderful things with fine leather for over 130 years. Welcome, Alistair.
Thank you very much.
And Peter, also as mentioned earlier, Peter Harper, he's the founder and director of Harper's Fine Foods. T. Harper and Son Limited is a family-run business which was started in 1947 by Peter's father, and it's been managed by Peter and his team since 1958. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you.
So, both of you work in quite different industries, but both of them are very close to my heart. Handbags and food. It doesn't get much better than that for me, I'm afraid. And I think it's true to say that you both operate in the luxury market. But first, can I turn to you, Alistair? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Well, we're as you say, a five-generation business. We've been working in leather and leather products for the whole of that time, since my great-great-grandfather started tanning in a village in North Bedfordshire, and it has passed through his children and through my grandfather, my father, and we now have in the business, we have myself and my elder brother working in the business. My brother William, he comes from very much a leather background. He's a leather technician. He has the leather knowledge originally, and I come from a very different sort of education background. I was educated as a scientist and I worked as a design engineer, and when my brother was looking for somebody else to join the business, he asked me, and at that time I thought, is that a sensible thing to do? Joining a family business, I understood the risks of entering into a world that is much more difficult to extract yourself from than a normal business. You can't just easily resign without causing problems for the business. So I had to think long and hard about that choice, about whether to be part of a family business, and I then thought, well, it was well worth the risk, because you would gain a lot more from being part of your own business rather than being out there in the big wide world. So I took the plunge and joined the business.
So it's interesting that you actually clearly at one point it hadn't really entered your head to join the business. That's sort of like a bit of a surprise, really. You know, you have visions of small children being brought up to follow in father's footsteps. So it doesn't sound as though it was like that in your family. Not
at all. When I started, I had left university. I had no intention whatsoever of joining the family business. I was very happy to plough my own furrow. I was going off to do my things, and it was really the opportunity came along. They asked me, do you want to join the business? It wasn't a case of, I was expecting to go and do it. It was for me a positive choice to say, yes, I would like to enter that environment. And there was no pressure on me from the family members, if I'd said no, that would have been absolutely fine.
So what do you think they wanted you to bring to the mix? I mean, one of the things that you hear within family businesses where there is or has been possibly an expectation of succession within family, that they also want the family to just agree with the previous generation's way of doing it. To bring you in, presumably they expected that you were going to be bringing some new things to the business as opposed to more of the same.
Well, I hope they were. They certainly got different things and a different way of looking at the opportunities and the challenges that were facing the business at that time. And very soon after that, we embarked on new enterprises, and I took a lead role in those new parts of the business.
What sort of new parts of the business did you...
Well, that was the transformation from being just a leather company to being a leather goods company. So we started at that point manufacturing finished products, which we hadn't done before. We had only been manufacturing and handling leather. But
that's a really serious innovation, isn't it?
It was a big innovation, but it was an absolute necessary one, because if we didn't embark on changing the business those 30 years ago, then there was going to be the leather trade in Britain was disappearing.
Yes.
And has basically disappeared. There's a little bit left, but most of it was going. So we needed to find alternative ways of being a business. Otherwise, there was no business to carry on.
And it's interesting and not surprising that one would head to the luxury end of the business.
Well, if you're going to make anything in Britain now, there's no point at all in being anywhere other than at the very top end of the market, because the Chinese, the Indians, everywhere else in the world has lower labour costs, and if you have low labour costs, you're going to be undercut. So you had to move as quickly as you could to be premium makers.
And if you were to sort of have that time over again, do you think there's anything you would do differently?
Probably be more courageous at the beginning.
Really?
I think you look back on many things and think, why were you worried about things?
Yeah.
With hindsight, it's a marvellous thing, and you can often tell, yeah, if I'd only known that. And I think that's probably one of the most important things we need to learn, is always to be a bit braver with ourselves.
So that would be what you would sort of recommend as a top tip to people that are kicking off now?
If you're kicking off, I think you've got different challenges. I think that's a hindsight telling you. I think if you're starting out, you've got to have determination to make your business work. You've got to have a commitment to it and a willingness to keep at it for longer than you think it's going to be to get a business running. It's not going to happen in 5 minutes. You need to keep working at it and expecting it's going to be 3 or 4 years before you're going to get it working how you want it to work.
Yeah, dedication. Now, Peter, you've been nodding sagely and agreeing with quite a lot of those sorts of comments. Tell us a little bit about Harper's and your business.
Well, the business has evolved enormously since 1947, obviously. And the big change, I think, started when doing a project on the effect of common market entry, negotiated by Ted Heath and George Ripon. I'd done a report for one of the government ministers, took it home, and my father, who was in industry, took one look at it. He said, if you're right, you don't have a business, which is pretty sobering. So within 18 months, we asked for planning permission and asked for a permission to put a shop and a production unit on the farm. And the purpose of this was to test what the market really wanted, because if you're a livestock producer, your market determination is what the wholesaler can sell next week. And if you go to retail, it's what he can sell at the end of the month. Now you've got a gestation period of nearly a year on cattle and 4 months on pigs. So you need to know what the market wants a lot further ahead than that. And we put that unit together to test the market. And we decided on certain principles that we would only sell the finest quality English product. We would buy in the technical ability to cut and prepare it and process it in whatever way the customer wanted, bearing in mind we're in a multicultural country, and we could see innovations coming there. So the quality of the product, the ability to prepare it and cut it to whatever specification that somebody wanted, and then unconditionally to guarantee it by replacement or refund, which caused all the butchers in our area to go into fits of humour because that just wasn't even considered. And I can remember the local publican saying he'd hosted 5 of our local butchers who'd met over the pub to decide which one would buy our products when we went into liquidation. Within 2 years, they'd all gone, and we were still merrily on. And in fact, I took the best staff from 2 of them. With reintroduction of the principles of business, they stayed with me for some years. But that was the sort of thing we did. The other principle was to recognise the value of committed customers, and not only to treat them and the staff like we would want to be treated if we were standing where they are, but also find a way of rewarding them for commitment to the business. So in 1980, we created a Fine Food and Wine Society, and that meant that any customer could join. It was a free membership, but they had to deposit a minimum of £30 a month. It was their money, they could spend it when they wished, held in a separate account, but every Christmas we gave them their fresh turkey, a bottle of wine, and we entertained them and their families, and we did the same in summer.
It sounds absolutely fantastic. It's interesting, Peter, because a lot of the things that you've been talking about sound like the sorts of things that businesses are doing today that they didn't do 20, 25, 30 years ago. So did it feel very brave at the time to, cease being a farmer and start being a retailer and do things quite differently?
Never occurred to us. Necessity makes its own masters.
The mother of invention, as they say.
And you have to innovate. You innovate or die. It's very simple. And when you have an idea and you start out to quantify it and you start looking at the questions like how our speaker did. In other words, he tests the viability of his ideas. And if they seem to stack up, then you plan it and you organise it and you direct the team and then you control it and keep your fingers crossed till you assess it and see whether you've really sent a bender or is this going to run.
You do seem to, what we talk about nowadays is a sort of 360-degree approach to business, so that you're looking after your staff, your customers, your suppliers, and everybody in the same way. And very few companies do that, even today. But it sounds as though you've been doing that, and that's been a really key element to your success, would you say?
Absolutely.
And you said, and it didn't feel different at the time, but suppliers must have been surprised that somebody was giving them a turkey at Christmas, that when they would possibly normally felt that they ought to be buying you a turkey, which obviously wouldn't have been appropriate, but some sort of thank you gift for business.
I think if our competitors start thinking we're anything other than mad, I'm going to lose the edge that we've got.
Have there been any sort of disastrous mistakes that you're prepared to share with us?
I think the main one is relying on the good nature of a bank.
Ah, right.
Because we've been with the National Westminster Bank for years and had good service, but when the Royal Bank of Scotland took them over, then it was a different ball game, and they could have put us against the wall. So now we've spread the elements of risk by making certain that by selling the unit, by reinvesting, we are not committed to any long-term or short-term borrowing from the bank.
Right, that's interesting. Now, we've just got time for one last question, so I'd like to ask it to you both. And that's, you're both individually very passionate about your businesses. How do you keep that passion alive? Alistair?
Well, I very much enjoy doing what I do. I love making product. I like that element of creativity, and I like making product with the team we have. And whenever you actually see somebody carrying one of your products, that is a great buzz. And wherever it may be, whether it's in the street in London or whether it's in Tokyo or New York, it's always a buzz to see that's one of my bags. Fantastic.
Who was the last famous person you saw carrying one of your bags?
Last famous person? Oh, I don't think I'm allowed to tell you.
Oh, bother. It's only local radio. No, let's put you in pressure. And Peter, what about you?
Well, I think at my age, when you wake up and find the Almighty's been generous enough to give you yet another day, and you work with fantastic people that you respect, and we have lovely customers as well. I mean, you've just got to enjoy the day. I mean, happiness is a right of everybody, and I live 7 days a week. Work is fantastic. That's about I get paid for. I mean, what more can you ask?
It sounds absolutely brilliant. Thank you enormously, both of you, and we hope that you're going to join us for the latter part of the show, and we've got some clips from some other people who've had long businesses, some more successful than others. others. But thanks very much for all the insight into your very interesting businesses.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
People living with cancer or life-threatening illness can often feel isolated, confused and alone. Grove House in Waverley Road, St Albans leads the way in offering free specialist care and support to patients and their families affected by cancer and life-threatening illness in St Albans, Harpenden and Dacorum. To find out more about their services, or how you can become a volunteer, or make a regular donation, or leave a gift in your will, phone 01727 731 000 or visit grove-house.org.uk.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners. Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
At Kingston Smith, our ethos is simple. We want our clients to succeed. Welcoming owner-managed businesses and individuals, we pride ourselves on offering the local business community a range of services that best supports their needs for maximum growth. Kingston Smith, helping our clients succeed. Find us on St Peter Street in the heart of St Albans, or for more information, head to kingstonsmith.co.uk.
Welcome back, and tonight we've been discussing business success and longevity, and we've had some fascinating conversations so far with Alistair Tusting from a company of the same name, Tusting, and Peter Harper from Harper's Fine Food and Wine. So far what have we learnt? Well, we've learnt that, interestingly, one of the greatest USPs is to be in the luxury premium end of the market, and that was a point that Alistair particularly pushed home. Peter told us that unless you innovate, you die as a business, and I think that's a very important point. And I think what's also come through very strongly is that understanding and using the skills of family members are very important, and if they're not right, then they're not right, which can be quite a controversial decision. So now let's hear from another successful long-standing business. Our own Claire McAnulty hopped on a train to Mayfair this week to meet David Higgins, Managing Director of H.R. Higgins Coffee Man Limited, a specialist coffee and tea merchant. The business started by his grandfather from a small room in South Moulton Street over 70 years ago, is still going strong. And here's what he had to say.
I wonder if you can start by telling me a little bit about your company and when it started.
We are a coffee and tea specialist business, so we roast our own coffee and blend our own teas, and we have a factory in Waltham Abbey in Essex where we roast all our coffee beans and do the tea blending, and from where we also send out our mail order to our mail order customers, although most of them have moved over to ordering online now, so we sell a lot of coffee abroad too. And then we have a shop in London, in the West End of London, in Duke Street, where you can go and buy coffee and tea. The company was started by my grandfather in 1942. He was an apprentice in the grocery trade from the age of about 14. He always wanted to specialise in coffee. He learnt the skills of tasting coffee, roasting coffee, and he became fascinated with coffee, really. And there weren't really any speciality coffee shops in the way that we have now before the war. They were all sold in grocers' shops. So it was quite a new idea to actually start purely a coffee business.
Do you have a specific business model that you try to keep to?
I'm not so sure we've got something that I would describe as a model. I suppose we're trying to keep to our principles, in the sense that we believe that everything we sell should be of the best and highest quality. So even when the price of coffee fluctuates, for example, which it can do quite dramatically on the markets, we don't try and counteract that by buying cheaper coffee. We stick to the best quality coffee that we can. So we're paying a lot of attention to all the detail of what we're doing in the preparation and the service that we give to customers as well. we've always believed in a very personal service, so we're very happy to sort of give a lot of information and help people choose what they want, and also to be flexible enough to make up a blend for somebody, for example. So I suppose from that point of view, that it's more a set of principles that we're following, rather than an idea of the business should be such and such a size and do this and that.
Would you say that there's any particular reason that you think that the business has thrived and survived for so long?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of reasons, really. I think the first one was the passion that my granddad started the business with, because he kept going, really, when he wasn't really making much money at all, because he loved doing it and because he believed in what he was doing. I think things improved in the 60s when my dad came on the scene and then took over, where business really started to boom. More and more people were drinking coffee in the home, although most of it was instant coffee, but it introduced people to the idea of even having coffee in the house. That took us into a new phase. We actually started to make some money, and probably there wasn't a lot of competition either for the kind of business we were. Not many other specialty coffee shops existed in the 70s. A lot of people were brought in by the smell of us roasting coffee in our shop in South Moulton Street, and it was an easy thing to sell. The smell of the coffee was fantastic. You had this lovely atmosphere, and hardly any competition.
But you do have a lot of competition now. Has that caused you to rethink the way you do anything?
Well, there's different aspects to our business. There's the retail and the wholesale. The fact of the matter is that a lot of these new coffee companies have introduced people into drinking coffee, and coffee is becoming so widely drunk that there seems to be ample place in the market for a lot of companies doing lots of individual things. But the good news is nobody seems to be cutting down drinking coffee anywhere in the world. You know, consumption of coffee's simply increasing all the time.
So you're not too worried then?
No, not really.
While everyone loves a cup of coffee, you're probably going to do fine.
Yes.
Now, I'm quite interested too. It's a very British business. You have a lot of foreign visitors who love the shop. It's almost like you keep a certain amount of old-fashionedness just in the general presentation. However, having said that, you've actually run a very successful e-commerce site. Why do you think you've got such a big market abroad? Do you think it is the fact that it's English, it's British? Do you think that helps you sell?
It certainly does in some areas. Certainly in Japan, they buy probably more tea than coffee from us, but they're looking for something very English, very traditional, and they like anything that's English and traditional, really. So they're not buying green tea from us, they're buying English tea, and they really like the whole of the English tea time culture. You know, the cream teas are really popular there. And in Russia as well, they buy quite a lot of tea from us, and they're looking for very high-end teas, better quality teas that they can get in Russia.
And also I know that you actually send coffee as far away as Australia. Now, why would people in Australia want to buy coffee from somebody in the middle of London?
That's a good question.
Why do you think that would be?
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, some of those people used to live in London and probably used to come into the shop, and they moved to Australia and just simply couldn't get used to being without our coffee. A lot of our customers, they've grown up with us. Perhaps their parents were customers of ours, so we've become part of their life in a sense. You know, we're their coffee supplier.
Do you think there is a secret to staying in business for a long period of time?
I suppose the reason we've survived a long time, well, there's probably several reasons. It's the fact that we've kind of held on to our principles, and I think people trust us. If you are going to last a long time in business, you've got to be able to change over time, and some luck is no doubt involved as well along the way, and having the desire to want to keep doing these things, you know, because a lot of people, I suppose, they start up a business, they enjoy it for a little while, then they get bored, so they sell it and move on and do something else. I suppose if you're going to stay in business a long time, if you really love doing it, you'll just keep doing it. I mean, it is fun. It's a nice business to be involved in, tea and coffee. There's a lot of very nice people in the tea and coffee industry as well, and you do get to see the whole process from growing coffee right the way through to drinking it. So you really do feel part of something a bit special.
And can you just tell us, first of all, where we'll find your shop and also your website address?
Yeah, so the shop is number 79 Duke Street, that's London W1 K5AS, and it's just off Oxford Street, just between Oxford Street and Grosvenor Square, near Selfridges. And our website address is www.hrhiggins.co.uk.
Oh, I'm feeling like I need a coffee now. Yet more wise words from a very successful business. And if you'd like to join in with the chat, you can call us on our studio number 01727 839 926, or you can tweet at RV the Business. And in fact, before we ask them what they thought about that interview, I'd like to ask both our guests how we get in touch with them on their Twitter feeds, because I understand you both have Twitter accounts, gentlemen. Alistair?
Oh, you've asked me a question now. I don't know what our Twitter feed actually addresses.
Oh, I think we do.
We do.
So we can cue you.
Your Twitter is very simply at Tusting. And do you know yours, Peter?
I think it's Harper's Food.
It is at Harper's Foods. And as I say, if you'd like to join in the conversation, you might like to contribute to the Twitter conversation.
Now, my guess is you do both know your website addresses.
Yes.
So if people want to have a look at your websites, Alistair?
That's easy. That's www.tusting.co.uk.
Brilliant. And Peter?
That's www.harpersfood.
Simple stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Is that harpersfood.co.uk?
It would be, thank you very much.
So, Alistair, what were your thoughts listening there to Mr. Higgins?
Well, I thought the critical parts for his business now are that they have got made in England cachet, and that's going to hugely benefit their export business, as well as people coming from around the world to shop in their store in London. Fantastic cachet, and really helps their business. I also was struck by the element that he was highlighting, that change is necessary. For any business to last, you've got to be ready to change, and whatever the new circumstances are, the new environment that a business finds itself in, it's got to look at itself and say, can it adapt, can it change to enable itself to move forward to the next 5 years, next 10 years. And that's a critical element for any business, is that it's got to be looking at itself and exploring new opportunities as they come along, saying, is that one that we should be doing, or is that one we're not going to do because that's not going to fit with us as a business or us as a group of individuals. And those are sort of key elements, I think, for us as well. In our business, we're always looking for change. Again, that made in England is critically important for us. So with our customers in Japan, that's one of the key parts that they're looking for when they buy one of our products, is, yes, it's made in England, by fulfilling that sort of criteria that they're looking for.
And Peter, you mentioned before, and I've seen on your website, that all of your beef is raised in Britain, and it's very definitely British beef. You're nodding again. How important is that part of your business?
Critical. But listening to the gentleman from coffee, that example for new people in the business is brilliant. Here is a company that is producing that are not even grown in this country, yes, coffee, and he's promoted it. I mean, my colleague here from Leather in Northampton and me, we've got a local product to develop. The initiative of that man is incredible.
We'll make sure that he knows how incredible our guests thought he was. But one of the other words that keeps cropping up, we've talked about change, you talked about innovation, service crops up again and again, doesn't it, as well? It's looking after the people that like your product, and then they stick with you. So if they get used to you, then it doesn't matter whether they head off to Australia or not, they still want to work with you, and that's an incredibly important part of any business.
I would say for any business, but either it's customer-facing business, as in a retail environment, customer service has obviously got to be paramount. But even in and the other elements of our business, which are selling to other businesses themselves, you've got to make sure you're looking after those customers, and when they want things, you look after them. And whatever it is that they need, you've got to try and find a way that fits with your business and then keeps their customers happy.
Peter, actually, I'm going to ask both of you a question. We're talking a lot about what you've done to make your business successful and how that's continued to move forward. What do you think the next step is, first of all, for Harper's?
To attempt to be extremely open-minded to what the ideas of the young have with them. There is the illusion as we get older that we've seen it all, and we've only seen our own experience. We need the initiative and the enthusiasm of the young, and we need to hope that we've got the wisdom to listen to it, because not all their ideas are good. I mean, they have 5 billion ideas and one bender, and the knack is picking out the bender for it costs us a fortune. But you must allow the initiative to germinate, to bring the new ideas forward. And you don't promote a product when you're looking forward. What you're trying to do is buy a customer, not sell a product. Because if you have the customer, you can find out what they want and how they want it, and that is what you develop.
And Alistair, next steps for Tusting?
Well, there are many next steps for us. One is developing our export markets, continuing to do that, especially in Japan, and we're starting to sell product into China. So back to where most products are now made, we're selling English product there. That's very important for us. Continue to develop our own manufacturing expertise, make sure that we are as good as we say we are, if not better than we say we are. So we're making great new products and introducing new things all the time for us to sell to our customers wherever they are.
I think it's really, really interesting stuff, isn't it? And we wish you every success with everything that you're about to embark on. I do love that idea of listening to the young, because they're not listened to as much as they ought to be listened to, and they get a lot of bad press a lot of the time. And I think you're right. It's important to listen to them, but also when you're sort of talking about change, it's also important not to sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater, to use an ancient expression. That you see some companies or some environments where they're so wrapped up in change that they forget what the principles and the basics sort of essence of their brand is, and that can then sometimes just go a bit wrong too.
Well, we're going to move on to another business with a difference. Vicky this time popped along to meet with Yvonne Rowson of Radlett Dog Grooming. She's been in the business of pooch pampering for 20 years, so very different to the businesses we've talked to so far this evening. How has she kept the business thriving for so long?
The dog grooming business has been a sustainable business for many years. It's actually 20 years now, 20 years this year that I have been in that business. And it's really gone from strength to strength. Very happy to say that I need to sounds very, very big-headed, but I really don't need to do any advertising now. It really does just work on totally word of mouth. And we're just busier and busier. And I think what happens is that we have 3 other people working there now who I trained Amy, who is now the manager, and Amy has gone on to train 2 others. So everybody there is trained to the standard that we've always upheld. Many other dog businesses are coming in now. When I first opened Radlett Grooming Centre, we were the only dog grooming business in the whole area. But I think now there's probably upwards of 30 dog grooming businesses in and around the area. Unfortunately, I have to say, because it isn't a regulated trade, so many of them are operating when they shouldn't be. They're not grooming properly. They're sort of doing damage to dogs. And we actually do pick up a lot of work from other groomers that have not groomed the dog properly.
So it always seems to come back to quality of service that keeps businesses going. I mean, you've 20 years in the dog grooming business, from no competition to loads of competition, and now you've got more dogs to groom than ever before, and the population don't seem to have more dogs, so you must be doing a lot right. It must be very satisfying. But how do you keep your energies up?
All businesses, need somebody at the helm. And that's what I do now, because the age I am, I don't actually physically groom the dogs, but I do keep my eye on the business on a daily basis. I answer the phone sometimes. I am there if there's any queries with any clients that sometimes do need to see me. and I'm very happy to be around it because I love business and I love the dogs, so it works.
And do you think at all about succession planning? I know we were talking a little bit earlier that you've trained your team, they are now training their next generation. What happens if you want to? I can't imagine you ever slowing down. But if you wanted to slow down and take your lead position a little bit more in a relaxed way, how are you going to go about that?
Well, I'm actually almost doing that already. Amy, who also is very fortunate, my lovely stepdaughter as well, she's been trained from when she was 14. She started with me when she was 14 as a Saturday girl, and I've trained her personally, so every aspect of the business she knows, and if I take a complete back seat, then I know that she's there to carry on as I would. She treats clients like I do, and it's one of the things that we're very proud of.
And how would you feel if she wanted to do things differently?
Oh gosh, I'd welcome that with open arms. I'm always happy to think and look for things new. Dog styles change, sometimes, many years ago, standard poodles just had pom-poms on legs and pom-poms on their heads, and it was all very, very average. But now you can
have a pom-pom anywhere.
Yeah, well, you can, wherever you like. You can even have a pink pom-pom now if you want.
Oh, wow. Well, it's always a pleasure to meet up with you, and it's always exciting because I know you're always doing something completely different. So thank you enormously, Yvonne Rowson, the Radlett Dog Grooming Business. And if people want to get in touch with you, and how do they get in touch with you, Yvonne?
Easily just give us a call on 01923 856 268 or our website, which is radlettgroomingcentre.co.uk.
Honestly, pom-poms, luxury handbags, British beef. There's got to be something in there that we could pull together. So moving on, there was a lot also coming out of that interview about next generation, and particularly this idea of clients featuring heavily on meeting the needs of clients, and I guess bespoking to some extent. Alistair, what were your thoughts listening to that interview?
Well, I was again struck by the need to maintain your reputation, to build your reputation, because that's going to be what succeeds in the business. If you have a reputation with your customers of doing the right things for them, then they're going to come back and keep coming back, and that's by far the best advertising you can ever have, is your customers coming back to you again. So that was important for me, I thought. And the other one was, again, that willingness to look for change, and if somebody's offering you a new opportunity or a new way of doing something, you've got to be ready to say, yeah, that's okay, we'll have a go at doing that, and change how you run your business and what you're doing to take advantage of any opportunities that could come along.
So what would you say brings clients back to Tusting? Because one could argue almost when you've bought a piece of luggage, as fine as it is, or a handbag, what makes you come back?
One of the problems is that we make some of our products, you could say, almost too well, so that they don't come back frequently enough. But we do, especially with the luggage, we know that people carry on using our bags for a long time, and that in itself is a great advertisement for us, because after they've used a bag for 10 years or so, they will come back. And you just got to be sure that when you make the right product, the reputation is there, and they will come back again, and you've got to keep offering them new things if they want new things, especially in the handbags. On luggage, it isn't so much about brand new things. People want to come back and buy perhaps the same thing maybe 10 or 15 years after they bought the last one. And if you're selling bags to men, that very much is the case, that we've had customers who will come back and ask for exactly the same bag they've had 15, 20 years ago.
I think you have to say thank God for women, because we never have enough handbags. One is not enough.
That is true. Women do require a little more change in their handbags than some men.
And Peter, another thing that came out of Yvonne's interview was this concept of enjoyment, enjoying what they do. And certainly there's a bit of a theme here tonight with all of you. How much do you think enjoying what you do has an impact on the success of your business and its longevity?
It's critical. It's not academic. Your staff have to enjoy. They spend 8 hours a day a third of their life at work. They have got to enjoy what they do, and you have an obligation to make certain that, yes, they need the skills, but the environment is one where they're appreciated, they're recognised, they're encouraged to learn. The wealth of gaining knowledge, not money, is something that needs to be part of the culture of the business. These people have to be happy. If they're not happy, this isn't going to work. If you come into our shop, you will hear people laugh, and they say to me, "Why do you make them laugh?" And I say, because if somebody laughs, they relax. If they relax, they're susceptible to ethical persuasion. It's not a complicated business.
I remember a while ago on the show we had some research that actually showed that within the retail environment, if you could get people to just smile, even if they were pretend smiling, sales in a normal retail environment went up by something like 35%. I mean, it was extraordinary. But that advocacy of staffs, it's something that if it's there, then you don't, and you haven't got to buy it, then it's so much more genuine. And when you've got a customer in front and somebody's saying, "No, honestly, it really is fantastic. This meat, you have got to taste it to believe it," and you can tell when somebody's really sort of making it up, or they're really passionate, and it rubs off that passion, doesn't it?
Very much so. You can be sure that when the people who've made the product, or the people who are selling the product for us, when they're in front of customers, they believe in what they're selling, and if they don't believe it, then there's no point. It's going to come out in their body language. If they don't believe what they're selling is as good as we say it is, then the customer is not going to be persuaded. So you've got to be sure that everybody, the complete team, everybody is aware of what you're doing and have the same belief in it as you do.
It also, one of the things that Peter was saying earlier, I don't know whether it's the same with you, Alistair, but it sounded as though a lot of your staff had been with you for a long time, Peter. Is that something that's important in your business, Alistair?
Yes, it is. We've got people who've been with us for pretty much their whole working lives.
Really?
And the people who work in our workshop making the products, we've had people there for 20, 25 years making bags who've got fantastic skill, and we need that skill in the staff, that they will be able to deploy and create the beautiful things we make, and that's essential for us.
And what about apprenticeships? Do you have apprentices in your businesses? I know it's a big sort of topic, subject that we've covered a couple of times.
Unfortunately, the leather trade is not a big one, and specialist training for it is not really available out from the training colleges or places like that. So the training we have to provide in-house. So it's not really as much as a formal apprenticeship, but we take people in and we train them to do the jobs we need them to do. So whatever it is, has to be basically self-taught by us to teach people how to stitch or the various other skills. It's all there. We have to keep training people and keep making sure the business is fully enabled to deliver what it needs to deliver.
And Peter, you talked about the importance of the youth and the youthful ideas in Harper's. Do you have an apprenticeship scheme or training scheme, or how does it work for you?
We're looking at an apprenticeship scheme at the moment, but the first thing we try to do is to make certain we've got the right people on board to do it, and we don't train people if they don't want to do the job. I mean, for example, for 40 years, anybody that's with the company for more than 9 months, we will pay for them to go to any college, anywhere. We'll pay for the course, we'll pay for the exams, and when they pass the exam, we write the loan off. And we've done that for 40 years. The last 5 years, we just pay it. And we say, your time, your career, we'll fund it, you commit to it. If you don't think you're worth the effort, and you don't think you're worth the time, why should we?
That's an extraordinarily generous approach, and it's clearly paying off.
We don't see it as a generous. We think it's our commitment to the generation yet to come.
Oh, fantastic.
It's
You're going to have people
investment.
queuing up out at doors to come and work with you.
We don't see it as a cost. We see it as an investment.
And how do you spot the people that are going to be right for you, that are going to be with you for the next 20 years?
You can't do that. What you can do is have people who are involved in the selection process. You have one of your people here this evening, Ross, who has helped us recently select 9 people to join the company. And I said to the MD, why did you take the whole 9? And she said they were nice human beings. Within 3 months, I'll have the round pegs in the round holes, the square pegs in the square holes, and the ones that don't want to work are going out the door.
Alistair, do you operate the same draconian tactics at Tusting?
No, we try not to be quite so harsh, but the basic skill is there. You've got to find the right people who are going to be willing to work and are willing to contribute to the team effort. That's the most important thing.
Well, as ever, we've learnt so much this evening, and can you believe it, we are coming towards the end of the show. I think the first thing I need to do is thank our guests, Alistair Tusting and Peter Harper, very much for joining us this evening. And Alistair, again, if people want to find out more about Tusting, what's your web address?
Web address is tusting.co.uk.
And Peter, yours?
harpersfinefood.co.uk.
He says, looking at Vicky. We also want to thank David Higgins and Yvonne Rowson for their fascinating insights too. And, of course, Vicky and Claire, who, as ever, fabulous interviewing there, Vicky. And Claire, who was on our decks tonight. She kept very quiet, but she's here, aren't you, Claire?
Yes, I am.
So, yes, we hope that you'll join us again. Remember that you can listen to us online if you go to our webpage, which is www.radioverulam.com. And please do tweet us at RV The Business, and we'll see you again soon.
The Business is sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants. If there's anything in the show you want to talk to us about, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.